Okay, today we are going to cover an update on the eviction moratorium and affordable housing in Oakland.
我哋今日嘅呢一個講座係會講關於租客嘅權益，大部分就會講關於可能呢個驅逐暫緩嘅有冇最新嘅進展，同埋屋齡嘅可負擔房屋嘅。
When COVID-19 started in 2020, the city of Oakland put a moratorium on tenants who rent.
OK，咁當2021 sorry， 當2020年呢個疫情開始嘅時候咧，跟住屋崙市政府咧係對於呢個租客就係有咗呢個驅逐暫緩嘅。
That means that if you were not able to pay rent during the time that we were locked down for COVID, that you cannot be evicted.
咁個意思即係代表喺疫情嘅期間，如果你係唔能夠支付你嘅租金嘅話咧，你嘅房東都係唔可以因為咁樣而驅逐你嘅。
The state of California put down the restriction also, and that expired already.
至於州政府即係加州嚟講咧，其實我哋都有同樣嘅條例嘅，咁只不過咧嗰個就已經係呢個暫緩就已經過期㗎啦。
Sky, can you go to the next round? Fortunately, in Oakland, it has not expired because they allowed for the city of Oakland. If you live in the city of Oakland, the moratorium is still in effect.
咁但係好彩嘅就係，如果你係屋崙嘅居民，即係如果你係住喺屋崙市嘅話咧，咁而家呢個驅逐暫緩咧係仍然都係生效嘅。
So the Board of Supervisors, who is in charge of the city moratorium, have decided that when they put out an expiration date, tenants have 60 days after that date before the moratorium lifts.
咁屋崙嘅監事會咧，佢哋當時就決定咗，就係如果佢哋決定咗個租金驅逐暫緩嘅日期有效期之後咧，跟住佢之後嘅60日咧，仍然都係生效嘅，直至到佢哋決定咗個日期60日之後。
So if you owe rent during this time, you cannot be evicted.
所以如果你喺呢個疫情期間，你係爭你嘅房東任何嘅租金嘅話咧，你係唔可以因為呢個原因而被驅逐嘅。
But you still have to pay rent.
但係其實你仍然喺呢段期間都係需要支付你嘅租金嘅。
Your landlord just cannot evict you because of not paying rent.
只不過你嘅房東唔可以因為你冇喺呢段期間冇交租而驅逐你。
There was a program called the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that you could have applied for, that the city would give you money to pay your landlord.
咁喺呢個疫情期間有一個緊急租金補助嘅計劃啦，跟住如果你喺呢段期間你係有申請呢個緊急租金補助計劃嘅咧，而批准咗嘅話咧，屋崙市政府係會幫你交租俾你嘅房東。
If you did not apply for it, it's too late because that deadline has passed.
但係如果你從來都冇申請到呢個緊急租金補助嘅計劃嘅話咧，咁你就係唔可以再申請啦，因為佢已經過期啦。
There is a new program out that we will talk about today, but only applies if you have been impacted by COVID.
咁佢哋喺呢個緊急租金補助計劃之後咧，佢哋又推出咗一個新嘅，咁我哋之後晏啲會同你哋講。咁呢個新嘅咧，咁就係你係可以申請嘅，如果你係受到 COVID 即係呢個疫情嘅影響。
So even though you cannot be evicted because of non-payment of rent, the landlord can still try to get you out if they don't want to be a landlord anymore, or if there is a health or safety issue with the unit.
OK，咁即係總括嚟講，雖然你個房東唔可以因為喺呢段期間你冇交租而驅逐你，咁但係房東仍然都可以用其他原因嚟驅逐你嘅，例如就係你嘅房東已經唔想再將佢呢個單位出租啦，即係佢唔想再做房東啦，又甚至係你而家住緊呢棟大廈係會構成健康甚至係其他嘅危險㗎，咁佢都可以因為呢個原因而驅逐你嘅。
And when I say that the landlord wants to remove the unit from the rental market, I mean like if they want to move into the house themselves, or if they're not going to have any more tenants or they're not going to have any more tenants, which means just because they're selling it does not mean that you have to move.
咁當我頭先就話，即係你個房東唔想再做房東嘅，我嘅意思係指，即係可能會佢想自己搬入個單位度，甚至係佢嘅親人想搬入去呢個單位度。咁又或者就係佢完全想將呢個單位唔再出租啦。咁呢個係可以構成呢個係驅逐你嘅原因。咁但係咧，如果你嘅房東只係想賣咗呢一個單位嘅話咧，呢個係唔構成呢個驅逐嘅原因嘅。
Usually when a landlord sells a house and you live in it, you become the tenants of the new owner.
咁通常如果你而家嘅房東想賣咗你住嘅呢個單位出去嘅話咧，咁你新嗰個買家，即係新嗰個房東咧，就會成為咗你嘅房東啦。咁你就會成為咗新嗰個房東嘅租客。
There are exceptions, so we tell people who call our office, or we tell people that if this occurs, they should call a lawyer to get more information.
咁當然係會有啲例外嘅例子嘅，咁所以我哋通常就會同人去建議就係，如果你係有呢種情況，即係你房東係想將你個單位賣咗出去，跟住而驅逐你嘅話咧，我哋會建議你去打電話俾一個律師，甚至係你可以打電話俾我哋，咁我哋可以俾諮詢俾你。
Next page, please, Sky. So there's a new funding source for financial assistance for rent that just came out.
咁係我哋好似我頭先所講，就係我哋而家係有一個新嘅經濟嘅補助啦，係幫你去支付你嘅租金嘅。
And you can apply for up to $6,000.
咁佢最高可以幫助到你嘅限額嘅金額係6000蚊。
So the requirements are on the page. You have to live, it doesn't have to be just Oakland. You have to live in Alameda County and be at risk of being evicted.
OK， 咁你而家見到個熒幕上邊就係佢嗰個你要符合呢以下嘅資格啦。咁其中一個咧就係你唔一定要住喺 Oakland 嘅，咁你只要住喺呢個 Alameda 呢個 county 嘅縣裏邊咧，咁都得嘅。只係你係呢個 Alameda County 嘅居民，跟住同埋咧就係你係受到驅逐嘅呢個危機。
You have to have like a signed lease or proof of tenancy, and that can be like canceled checks or some sort of agreement between you and the landlord that you actually live there.
OK， 咁就係你必須有一張你哋可能簽咗嘅租約啦，又甚至係其他你係住喺嗰度嘅證據，即係例如話你交租嗰啲支票去證明你係住喺嗰度嘅。
If you pay your rent by cash, you can ask the landlord to give you a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be official, just to say that you paid this much for this month. So that is another proof.
又甚至係我知道可能有啲人係一直用緊現金去交租嘅，咁你哋其實可以要求你嘅房東去唔需要任何即係正式嘅，你可以叫你房東就咁寫一張紙，即係作為一個收據，即係證明咗佢係收咗你幾多錢係呢個月嘅租金咁樣都可以係嘅。
The third requirement is that you have had to have been impacted by COVID in terms of you either got COVID or you were taking care of someone with COVID or you lost your job because something related to COVID caused hardship for you.
OK，第三個咧就係你必須要受到 Covid 即係疫情嘅呢個影響，即係例如話係可能係你自己曾經中過呢個新冠病毒，又甚至係你必須要照顧你身邊可能你嘅伴侶甚至家人係中咗呢個新冠病毒，又甚至係可能因為疫情嘅關係你冇咗份等等，即係你必須要受到呢個新冠病毒嘅影響嘅。
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
That the grant also has to prevent an eviction, like if the landlord is trying to kick you out, that this grant will help that.
Sorry, Lynn, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so that the money that we're requesting has to prevent your eviction.
OK， 跟住同埋就係都係，如果當我哋要求需要呢個嘅經濟嘅補助嘅話咧，咁佢提供俾你嘅呢一個金錢係必須要可以幫到你，令到你唔需要被驅逐嘅。
And then on the next page, it shows the income limits of who can qualify for this money.
OK， 咁去到下一頁咧，咁就係你可以睇到嗰個金額，就係你需要知道你必須可能係要低過呢個金額，你嘅收入必須要低過呢個金額，咁你係先可以受申請嘅。Next page。係啦，咁你喺而家熒幕嗰度你就見到嗰個金額，即係你必須要知道你嘅收入，咁你就知道你係幾多先你可以符合資格。Why there's two?
So the top one is very low income, and then the bottom one, you have to make, I think your rent has to be like 30% of what you bring home so that they can show that you're paying most of your take home towards rent.
OK， 第一上邊嗰個咧就係你必須呢個係以 Oakland， 以嗰個中收入嗰個指標嚟講咧，跟住你係上面一個就係你低於佢50%，跟住即係如果係嗰個嘅，咁你就可以申請。跟住下邊嗰個咧就係如果你嘅租金係你嘅年收入嘅大概係30% 嘅話咧，跟住咁你就 30% and then you can apply.
Yeah, so if your rent burden is 30% of your income, yeah, then you can apply.
OK， 係啦，就係如果你嘅租金係你嘅年收入嘅大概要佔咗30%嘅話咧，咁你都可以符合資格去申請嘅。
Next page. So in terms
We can hear you.
In terms of the application process, they need to be a client of a participating organization. So if they want to apply for this grant, then they have to be one of our clients so that we would go through it and help them with all of the requirements to make sure it's a complete set before we can help them submit it.
跟住同埋，如果你要符合呢個嘅經濟補助嘅話咧，咁你必須要係嗰啲參與嘅機構入邊嘅客人，咁so we are one of them, right？ 係啦，咁我哋公司係其中一個參與嘅機構啦，咁我哋係可以去幫你make sure 你所有嘅文件係齊晒，跟住我哋先會幫你去，跟住先符合資格，跟住我哋先幫你交上去嘅。
Okay, so our information is at the last slide. So our phone number and address can be on there. And also that they have to call to make an appointment because our office is not open for walk-ins.
OK， 跟住你去到我哋呢一個講座嘅最尾一頁咧，你到時就會見到我哋公司嘅電話同埋地址啦。咁任何人如果真係需要我哋幫助嘅，係需要打電話俾我哋辦公室先啦。我哋雖然有我哋地址，但係咧，因為我哋而家辦公室其實係唔開嘅，所以你就唔好走上嚟，你就打電話先啦。
And I also want to just reiterate that if they are behind on rent and the landlord is threatening them, because of the moratorium, they cannot be evicted just because they owe rent.
OK， 同埋我哋再想重申一次，就係如果你係因為喺呢個疫情期間你爭緊你嘅房東嘅租金，而你房東係因為呢個原因想驅逐你嘅話咧，因為有呢個驅逐暫緩嘅命令仍然都係生效嘅，咁所以你嘅房東係絕對唔可以因為你爭佢租金嘅錢而驅逐你嘅。
Okay, so we're going to switch over to the different types of affordable housing available in Oakland.
OK， 跟住我哋而家以下咧，我哋會講緊 Oakland 市入邊唔同嘅可負擔房屋。
I just want to start by saying that they all have wait lists. Then the wait lists are very long. Some of them, the wait list is even closed, but we don't provide housing. We can only tell them about housing and help point them in the right direction.
OK， 首先我哋喺講可負擔房屋之前，我哋需要提醒一句，就係所有嘅可負擔房屋咧都有呢一個等候排名嗰個名單嘅。咁甚至係有啲可負擔房屋咧，係佢連個名單都冇，因為佢太多人啦，甚至佢刪咗啦。咁我哋公司係唔幫人去申請可負擔房屋嘅，即係如果你打電話嚟係需要有人幫你申請咧，我哋做唔到呢樣嘢，我哋可能只係會話俾你聽，你需要可能去打電話，甚至去邊度揾嘅。咁但係我哋就唔幫人申請嘅。
So the first one I want to talk about is public housing, and it's managed by the Oakland Housing Authority.
咁第一種嘅可負擔房屋咧，就係公共嘅房屋啦，咁係由屋崙房屋處去管理嘅。
So like, because this is affordable housing, all of them you have to be low income.
咁因為呢個係可負擔房屋啦，所以就係你必須要係低收入先可以符合資格嘅。
One of the requirements of public housing is you have to have a social security number.
咁其中一個條例咧，即係你需要符合資格咧，就係你必須要有一個社會安全卡號碼。
So good cause protections are in place, meaning the landlord cannot evict you without a good reason.
咁同埋如果你住喺可負擔房屋嘅話咧，你係受到保護嘅，即係代表嘅意思係指咧，你個房東必須要有一個正當嘅理由先可以驅逐你嘅。
It could be like you're doing something illegal in the unit, or you are destroying the property, or you're breaking something that is listed in the lease that you cannot do, and you're doing it anyway, like running a business.
OK， 咁即係代表咧，就係可能係你喺個可負擔房屋入邊做緊啲非法嘅嘢，又甚至係你係破壞緊呢一個單位，又甚至係喺張租約裏邊寫到明係你唔可以做嘅，但係你做咗，咁呢啲就係正當嘅理由，咁房東係可以驅逐你。
Another one we hear a lot about is Section 8.
咁另外一個就係可能大家都有聽過嘅其中一款嘅可負擔房屋就係 Section 8。
There's different kinds of Section 8.
咁 Section 8都有唔同種類嘅。
There's one where the owner of the property has a contract with the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
咁其中一款嘅 Section 8咧就係You mean the city of Oakland, right?
The city of Oakland.
OK， 係啦，咁其中一款 Section A 就係屋崙市政府同埋房屋嗰個部門咧係有一個合約嘅。
So you have a lease with the owner and you pay the reduction in rent, and then HUD has the money and they pay it to the landlord.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so the money goes to the landlord. It's attached to the property. It doesn't go with the tenant. Because the other Section 8, the tenant can take their money and go to any private house.
No, but so tenant pay landlord and then the HUD also pay landlord.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay， 咁呢一款嘅 Section 8咧就係好似我頭先所講，就係屋崙市政府同埋房屋個部門一齊去。咁 咁咧就係你如果作為租客嘅話咧，你係俾錢俾你嘅房東，你俾一部分，即係你嘅租金啦。咁其實房東只係收取你一部分嘅啫，跟住剩翻嗰啲錢咧就係個房屋嘅部門咧會補俾你個房東嘅。
And they look at immigration status and they look at your criminal history.
咁佢哋咧而呢一個類型嘅 Section A 咧，佢哋係會睇你個移民嘅身份，同埋佢會睇下你有冇曾經犯罪嘅記錄嘅。
Like the public housing, they have to have a good reason for you to be evicted. You can't be evicted for no reason.
咁呢一款嘅 Section A 呢一個種類嘅 Section A 同頭先一樣，都係你係受到保護㗎啦。咁即係代表就係你係房東唔可以因為任何原因而驅逐你，係必須有一個正當嘅理由。
The last one that I'm going to touch upon today is the housing choice voucher. That's the most popular one.
OK， 另外一款Section A 咧，咁就係大家都可能好熟悉嘅咧，係你 Section A 嘅 voucher，即係一個券。
It's like they give you the voucher and you go on Craigslist or wherever and you find a house that accepts it and you use that like coupon and say, I want to rent here. Section 8 is going to pay $2,500 of my rent. Here it is. And then you have that separate agreement because you found the house on your own.
咁就係 Section A 會俾一個 voucher，即係好似一張 coupon 咁樣俾你啦，跟住你就自己去揾你嘅房屋，即係你自己上網揾又好，點樣揾都好。跟住假設你嗰個 coupon 可能就係有2500蚊咁樣，咁你就係用嗰張 coupon 去俾你嘅房東嚟交租咁樣。
The difference in this one is that the landlord can say that they will accept it, but the place that you're renting has to pass inspection. So if it's not a good condition, then the housing authority can say, we're not paying that rent, and then you'll be stuck.
咁呢一款嘅 Section A 嘅 voucher，即係大家可能比較熟悉嘅咧，咁佢就係個問題就係可能你嘅房東，即係你揾到一個地方，你嘅房東同你講話佢可以收嘅 Section A 嘅，佢可以收嘅。咁但係問題係佢房東佢出租嘅呢個單位必須係要受到 Oakland 房屋處嘅檢查，即係要make sure 佢係個狀況呢個單位嘅狀況係好嘅。咁即係如果Oakland房屋處覺得佢呢個單位嘅狀況係唔好嘅話咧，咁你就唔可以租呢個地方啦。
So if you think that there are issues with where you're living, you should contact the housing voucher program as soon as possible so that you can move to another place, because you don't want to be stuck in a house that you cannot afford and Section 8 is not going to pay it because it did not pass inspection.
Sorry, what do you mean by issues?
So they get this coupon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you live in a place and Section 8 has been paying it, but then like the plumbing breaks and the landlord's like, I'm not fixing it, Section 8 won't pay it because it's not livable. And so if Section 8 doesn't pay the rent and you don't have another place to go, then you can't use the rent, the coupon, and you don't have the money to pay it. So you're stuck. So if there's issues, you should tell the Section 8 as soon as possible so you can find another place to live, because you're responsible for finding your own place. It's not a Section 8 place, it's the private market.
OK， 咁頭先律師就俾咗一個好好嘅代表，即係如果你係而家係用緊 Section A 嘅 voucher 嚟租屋嘅話咧，咁而你間屋係有狀況，即係假設可能係條喉爆咗咁樣啦，咁咧其實因為係你自己去揾呢個地方去租嘅，咁
睇到，依家係啦，依家靜音啦。
咁你係因為係你自己揾呢個地方去租嘅話咧，所以係你自己需要有 權利係你自己去通知翻 Section A， 話俾 Section A 聽，而家我住緊呢個單位係爆咗水渠，所以我唔可以再喺度住。因為如果好似我頭先所講，呢個單位嘅狀況係唔好嘅話，Section A 係唔會俾錢俾你。咁如果佢唔會俾錢俾你，咁你自己又負擔唔到呢個租金嘅話咧，咁你又冇下一個地方住咧，咁你就唔知點算啦。咁所以咧係你用緊 Section A voucher 嘅話咧，咁如果你有一個住嘅地方你係有狀況嘅話咧，你必須要通知翻 Section A 嗰邊啦，跟住你就自己嘅責任去揾翻你下一個地方你可以住嘅地方。
Okay. Let's go to the next page. So California tenant laws apply to Section 8, and Oakland is a rent control city. But if you have Section 8, you cannot get rent control.
Can you separate that?
Yeah, so Oakland gives rent control if you live in an Oakland, but if you collect Section 8, rent control doesn't apply to you.
OK，Oakland 咧係，如果你需要知 Oakland 咧係有租金管制條例嘅，咁 Oakland 都有 Section A 啦。咁但係如果你係住喺一個 Section A 嘅地方咧，嗰個地方係唔受到租金管制嘅。
This is because you already live in affordable housing and Section 8 controls how much you pay. So you can't say, the landlord is going to say, oh, I'm going to raise your rent $100. You can't complain about that because Section 8 does not apply to rent control. Because Section 8 already controls how much rent it is.
OK， 因為 Section 8已經喺度管制緊你嘅租金，所以如果假設你而家住喺一個 Section A 嘅地方嘅話咧，而你嘅房東加你100蚊租嘅話咧，你係唔可以去投訴嘅，因為 Section A 已經管制緊你嘅租金啦。
But just because rent control doesn't apply to you doesn't mean that the other laws don't apply for you. Like if you need maintenance done or repairs.
OK， 咁純粹因為你住喺 Section A 嘅房屋入邊，跟住你係唔受到租金。
我都搞不到。
着急，你说你那手机是吧？
手機。
Thank you。咁純粹係因為你住喺 Section A 嘅房屋入邊，你唔受到租金管制，咁唔代表你係冇受到。
我知道人家4點半就準時開啦。
咁唔代表你係唔受到租金保護嘅，咁即係代表就係如果你住嘅地方係需要維修，或者係有其他係咯，好似其他嘅維修嘅話咧，咁你仍然都可以要求房東去做呢一樣嘢。
Good cause still applies even if you live in Section 8, so the landlord cannot evict you for any reason, for no reason.
係啦，咁好似我哋頭先所講就係你就算係住喺 Section A 嘅房屋都好，你係受到保護嘅，即係法律嘅保護嘅。咁即係你嘅房東唔可以因為任何原因而驅逐你嘅，係必須要有一個正當嘅理由。
If you have a problem with your landlord and you live in affordable housing, you should call our office because the housing authority will not get involved. They just pay the rent. They're just like the banker.
咁如果你係住喺 Section A 嘅房屋入邊，而你同你嘅房東係有糾紛，因為你住緊嘅地方嘅話咧，你係應該打電話俾我哋辦公室啦。咁係因為咧，你就算去同Oakland市房屋處度投訴咧，佢哋係唔會做到任何嘢嘅，因為佢哋只係俾錢嘅啫。咁所以你係歡迎你去打電話俾我哋辦公室嘅。
If your landlord or the housing authority give you a form and tell you to sign it, don't sign it unless you talk to a lawyer first. Don't sign anything unless you talk to a lawyer first.
You landlord.
Landlord or the housing authority.
OK， 如果you mean Section A housing, right? OK， 如果你住喺 Section A 嘅房屋入邊，而你嘅房東又甚至係Oakland 嘅房屋處去俾咗任何文件要你簽名嘅話咧 我哋建議你唔好簽住，你應該揾一個律師，即係打電話俾我哋啦，等我哋幫你做完諮詢之後，你先好簽，唔好佢哋俾任何文件你都簽咗先。
Because we've seen people come into our office and say they signed something even though they did not understand it.
係啦，咁因為我哋辦公室其實見過好多人嚟揾我哋咧，就係佢哋話佢哋嘅房東甚至喺房屋處嗰度俾咗文件佢哋，其實佢哋唔知咩嚟嘅，但係佢哋簽咗先。
If your landlord or property manager says we're going to evict you, you have to be out in 20 days or whatever, it has to be in writing and then call our office to look at the paperwork because most likely it's not valid.
如果你嘅房東又甚至係幫你嘅房東管理棟大廈嘅人同你講話，我哋要收翻呢個單位，你要搬走，你要喺20日裏邊搬走㗎。首先，如果佢係口頭通知你咧，係冇用嘅，一定要係書面上去通知你啦。同埋咧，之後咧，你係應該要打電話俾我哋辦公室，我哋可以幫你睇下佢嗰份通知究竟有冇效嘅。因為好多時候其實佢哋份通知係錯嘅，咁我哋可以話俾你聽應該點做。
If you need to get repairs done on your unit, and you've asked your landlord and they haven't done it, put it in writing first. And if they still haven't done it, contact us to help you move things along.
咁如果你係成日叫你房東去做即係你可能單位有啲嘢壞咗有維修，你又不停叫你房東去做，但係佢都冇做咧，咁你必須要係書面上去通知咗你房東先。咁如果佢都係冇做嘅話咧，咁你歡迎你打電話俾我哋，咁我哋可以幫助你去同你房東溝通。
If your landlord wants to raise your rent, and this is whether you live in a private or public housing, it has to be done the correct way. And they can't just say, oh, just give me an extra $10 or $20 and raise the rent that way. It has to be official, it has to be in writing, and it has to follow the form.
咁如果你嘅房東，即係無論你係住喺公共嘅房屋啊，甚至係私人嘅房屋，任何都好。咁如果你嘅房東係想加租嘅話咧，佢其實係唔可以咁樣口頭上通知你，同你講話啊，你下次加多10蚊，甚至加多20蚊俾我啦，即係以後你每個月就加多10蚊、20蚊俾我，咁樣係其實係唔得嘅。佢必須要係有一個正當嘅程序，同埋佢要有正當嘅通知你先可以係加租嘅。咁如果你唔清楚嘅話，你都可以打電話俾我哋辦公室。
We've had people come into our office and say that they will just pay the rent increase because the landlord hasn't increased it in so long and they feel bad. But for private housing this year, the rent increase can only be 1.9%.
咁我哋都有好多人打電話俾我哋，同我哋講佢嘅情況就係，我個房東口頭上通知我，可能由下個月開始要加20蚊租金咁樣，跟住因為佢對我好好啊，佢一直都冇加我好多年租金啦，所以我都係俾咗佢嘅。咁但係咧，其實咧，Oakland 係有每一年都有租金管制嘅條例嘅，而今年你嘅房東只係可以加你嘅租金1.9%。
Next page, please. So there are a few options available for you to find housing. I've listed them like Call 211, or there are a couple of websites there. I will give this to Sky to list for your members as a reference.
But this is for affordable housing only, right?
Mm-hmm.
OK， 如果你想要揾可負擔房屋嘅話咧，咁我哋喺熒幕上面而家就有3個資源，你可以去嘗試去打電話，甚至係個網頁你可以去試下去揾可負擔房屋啦。咁我哋會將呢一啲嘅資訊去俾賓仔，咁賓仔之後就會可能同你哋分享。
Next page, please. So I know I keep saying that you should call our office for help, but if anything comes up regarding your housing, you should call our office because we can walk you through it. We cover those Asian languages listed and we are closed for walk-ins, but you can make an appointment after an intake.
OK，咁我知道我哋頭先講咗好多次，就係如果你有咩情況，房屋嘅情況，其實你可以打電話俾我哋辦公室啦。咁而家熒幕上邊就係有我哋公司嘅電話同地址。雖然有地址，但係我哋再重申一次，其實我哋辦公室已經係閂門嘅，所以你係唔好走上嚟。就算你走上嚟都唔會有人㗎，你已經必須要打電話。咁你打電話之後，你要經過咗我哋公司登記嘅程序嘅。咁我哋公司除咗講廣東話之外，我哋都有人可以識講國語，甚至係其他亞洲嘅語言啦。咁所以你任何情況你打電話俾我哋先，唔好走上嚟辦公室。
Ruby, because someone is calling by phone, could you just repeat the info?
Sorry， 係啦，我哋嘅電話係510-251-2846。我再重複一次，我哋辦公室嘅電話係510-251-2846。
Thank you.